Good morning, guys. Today we've got a coolant leak in a hybrid vehicle. Let's see if we can fix it. I put a mirror in so you can see a little bit better. On the left there, that's the radiator drain spigot, and it seems to be fine, but the leak is coming from the corner just underneath it. And you can see with the mirror there that the whole area is wet. Clearly we've got a leak from the main radiator body and it needs to be removed. Here's a view from the front. You can see there's the area of the drainage. The little condenser radiator up there is completely dry.
Now, if you're careful in a hybrid, many of your skills with other vehicles will transfer over, but you need to be careful not to touch any of these orange wires, which are high voltage wires and could be dangerous. In addition, one of the key things with the design of the hybrids is that the battery is a safety mechanism. When the battery is disconnected or removed, the vehicle is put in a kind of a lockdown mode, which puts it into an even safer situation for emergency services and for mechanics. And so, as a first effort, I'm going to remove the accessory battery to give myself more room and also to make it a little safer to work on.
Let's remove this cover panel. 3 screws you just pry up and pull them out. One here too. Now let's remove the airbox. I'm going to do these 2 bolts and then these 4 clips and take the front of the airbox off. This device does have a conventional radiator cap. It's under here. Now the engine is cold and so I can safely do this, but of course don't do it if it's hot. With this off, it'll drain a lot easier when I open the drain petcock down below.
Of course, whenever you remove a cap, have a look underneath. Make sure both seals are fine. This is really an elegant design when you think about it. To properly test a pressure cap, you need to have special testing apparatus, but at least you can review the seals. The high pressure spring seems to be functioning fine, and then the low pressure spring, you can see some movement here. And so overall this cap looks fine.
Well, now I'm draining the fluid from below. You turn that yellow petcock counterclockwise about 3 or 4 turns. I put some plastic tubing on it just so I don't make a mess. So the drain is draining now into a pail. While we're waiting for it to drain, let's take this top bracket off. I'm going to do these 4 bolts and then these 2 attached to the horn. This little electrical connector has a plastic tab. Typical design, you press down, wiggle and pull without putting too much strain on the wires. And there we have it now. See if I can push this aside without having to disconnect it further. But I've taken a few extra plastic clips and bolts off. I took the cover plate off for the underneath to see a little better, and I've taken off 2 bolts here and here. All right, this little plastic saddle is a typical thing. You just put your screwdriver in there and pry, and then this pulls up. You try not to break these little plastic tabs as you lift it up off of the radiator. There are 2 of these. And then you got your usual struggles to go get that lower rad hose off, put a bucket underneath. Well, I was hoping to get by without removing the fan shroud and the wiring harness for it because it's a little bit of extra effort, but it looks like I'm going to have to do that. But before I do that, let me show you something interesting about this hybrid design that's not seen in a typical vehicle. Well, here's the layout. This is our radiator right here, this aluminum one on the top. And then we've got 2 additional condenser radiators here. And if you look here, you can see this connection is a characteristic connection for air conditioning, and on this side they've got their version of the receiver dryer. And so this one is AC. And then this third one is what one would conventionally consider to be the transmission cooler. But the design here is quite a bit different than a typical design. With a typical transmission cooler, you get tubes of transmission oil that are routed through here, and you get an interchange between the cool air and the hot transmission oil with no coolant in the way. But with this is the cooler for the hybrid drive system. And the way they do that is they have a completely separate system which is coolant based. So you've got the same pink coolant going through this one that you have going through the radiator. And so the coolant goes to the hybrid drive, cools the hybrid drive, comes back out, exchanges with air, and so forth. And so two completely separate systems. Of course, one of the first questions that may arise is the question as to which radiator is leaking. And in that sense, it's actually convenient to have two separate systems because you can know right away by looking at the reservoirs. This is the reservoir for the hybrid drive, and it's nicely topped up and never needed fluid replenishment, whereas the reservoir for the engine radiator was dropping low, and I kept having to replenish fluid. And so I know that that's the system that I need to be working on.